and I'm not
No.
wearing a mask. You're not wearing a mask, but we will get right to the task and start talking about grass. So,
You remember like when we used to just be like, "You're in the rotation."
yeah, man, we
Oh,
used to
jeez.
jump in the rotation. That was our thing, jumping in the rotation. So,
Yeah. So Gary's not here. Gary's got the something going on with family issues or whatever, personal. So yeah, it's just a classic duo of Chris and Carlos, and we're here to talk about marijuana in Florida
mm. no,
and all
before
the stuff that's going on.
Man, before we start on Florida, I gotta say just a couple of announcements. Last night, the Virginia Legislature legalized adult use. They so I mean, the bills left out in its final form, expungement of records and criminal justice reform, which was a big issue for a lot of folks. But overall, having the right to have up to 6 ounces on you, they're going to have retail facilities for adult use by 2024. So I thought that was pretty interesting that, the conservative South, if you will, Virginia is really the first big state to go
Kind
down.
of depresses me a little bit because I kind of wanted Florida to be the first place in the South to legalize adult use marijuana. And like Virginia, I didn't even know Virginia had medical marijuana. And
Um,
like, you know what? I'm also a
yeah,
little skeptical too. Every time I hear a place legalizes medical marijuana or adult use, after what happened here in Florida with medical marijuana and how they kind of corrupted the system, and hearing about what happened in New Jersey, everybody's all happy that New Jersey's got like this new. I thought they had medical marijuana for a while, but they either got medical marijuana or they got adult use, and it's just as restrictive as our program. Like
yeah.
you can't grow at home. You got to pay like huge amount of money. Nobody can open up a dispensary, and like I don't know, man. Um, are we even legalizing marijuana anymore? Is that like a thing? Like, or I mean, it seems to me, and like I'll be honest with you, I'm ranting a little bit, but I'll be honest with you. I like to I got into marijuana to get into the business side of things, and I've done a good deal of activism work or whatever, but I really want to make an impact in the industry. And it looks to me like the industry's dead. And we were talking about mushrooms before we got on the show. I think mushrooms are the new thing. Maybe we should become the national organization for the reform of mushroom laws.
Well, interesting enough, mushroom laws in the DMV, at least in Washington D.C., by the voters' referendum, was decriminalized in this last election. Virginia's bill allows for the cultivation of up to 4 plants for
Okay.
personal use, and
All right. So Norman asked that in the comments. So
yeah.
you knock that out.
And there was this battle over vertical integration, though, of the Virginia retail system. The House version wanted to ban vertical integration. The Senate version wanted to allow it if the companies paid $1 million fee into a state equity fund. So there is this public policy of vertical integration that is seeping into a lot of newer systems that are legalizing, and it does become a political fight because vertical integration really is about keeping the money in just a handful of places and a handful of actors
It
who can
really
afford
is.
to be in the industry, which is not the American way.
No.
Since you are a young child taught in the American public school systems, is that we're a capitalist free market society. And the older you
Yes.
get and the more taxes you pay in life and the more responsibilities you have, whether it's a mortgage or a car or you start to vote, you start to realize it is not a free market. It is a pay to play market, meaning that the rules do not matter if you have enough money.
Mm, You can hire the right lawyers.
You can
You can
buy the right
bribe the right,
politicians.
yeah,
Yeah.
bribe the right politicians.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not right, man. And it really, really sucks because something like marijuana. I really have, and I sound like a hippie or whatnot, but I have an affinity with the plant. I know I look really high on the podcast today, but but like in my opinion, this plant, there's no other plant out there that grows in the ground, that can grow from seed, that has an affinity with the human body. And it's crazy that we restrict ourselves from it. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but and I just feel jaded at this point with baby steps in marijuana legalization. I don't think marijuana is going to be legalized anymore. I think laws are going to be passed, but I don't even know if what's happening in the Florida legislature right now with the bills to legalize adult use with Brandis and Carlos. Maybe I should take a closer look at them, because I mean, that might not even do anything for us. That might not even like change anything.
Well, there is one interesting bill having to do with legalization that Representative Angie Nixon who's a freshman representative out of Jacksonville, is sponsoring, and it is essentially a way to strike down vertical integration, if you will, to allow other businesses, micro businesses, to come in and work with the already vertically integrated folks. All in all, the vertical integration system is there. It's a reality. What we can do is pass legislation and policy to essentially work around the issues that it's created, by allowing smaller businesses to source to their product from the existing vertically integrated farms. And that was something that the Virginia bill also does. It allows, it's still going to have some vertically integrated businesses that are already in the medical market, but then it's going to allow micro businesses, small businesses, to get into it themselves, and to be able to work with them. And I think that that's part of it. Like, we're not going to push these already established multi-billion dollar companies. Hey, what's up,
Hey,
puppy?
Buffy.
So this is Sansa, all right, and Sansa wants to get on in the rotation. So yeah,
what does she think about these baby steps of progress not leading anywhere?
she has an issue with it because these are the same baby steps we've been talking about since the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And it seems like that across the entire country. When it comes to the cannabis, when it comes to the minimum wage, when it comes to civil rights and the fight for equality, we are still, in the establishment, politicians and everyone in the public seems to think that incremental steps are okay. But the fact is that it's not. More people getting arrested in this country for marijuana possession, for cannabis possession, than all violent crime put together is not okay. And that level of incremental progress is not okay.
We may have not seen legalization fully here in the US anywhere, but there's areas in the US that have seen tolerance. And like what I'm talking about right now is like I lived for a certain amount of time in downtown Oakland in California. And dude, like you walk past a fucking bus stop in downtown Oakland and it smells like pot. There's a dispensary right across the street from the downtown Oakland police department. And like you walk out of that dispensary, you got a brown paper bag with it stapled at the top, and there's a car parked outside with like two cops sitting on it eating donuts. And like they know what's in that brown paper bag, and the thing is that they don't care because they had made it known, we're not here to arrest you for pot. We're worried about gangs and murders and all this other stuff. We're going to take a responsible approach to policing the public. So we've seen tolerance. So that also means that like I've experienced a little bit of freedom here. And in Cali, you could grow your own plants. You could go to a store. You would have to say a certain lingo and say, I need a donation and I'm a member and this is a collective or whatever. But you're going into a store, you're buying pot, and this is pot that's grown in people's basements and whatnot. And that's the good shit. That's the shit that people cared about. You know what I mean? And it was freedom and nothing was wrong. As a matter of fact, cops were caring more about murder. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why we can't just legalize the plant. It's frustrating. It's frustrating, and I'm all for a bill that allows people to set up a warehouse and all these people share the space and there's guidance from all these other growers and whatnot. And I'm all for letting tourists come in here and being allowed to smoke our medical marijuana. I'm down to pass a blunt to a tourist. But it's just frustrating for all the baby steps, and it's like we're not even really getting anywhere. And I don't know, maybe I'm just in like a weird drab mood this morning. I don't know.
Well,
Sorry.
it's interesting to see where public policy is going. I read a bill yesterday that now wants to crack down on Delta 8 THC sales. And I know
What the
that,
hell? In Florida?
yeah, in
What the
Florida,
hell?
just got filed. And
Ah,
and they want to prevent
I sell
minors.
Delta THC.
They want, yeah. I thought you would be interested to hear this.
I didn't know about it.
The bill's being sponsored by Bobby Powell, and I firmly feel as though it is a waste of our tax dollars, because ideally, why does the Florida legislature need to waste money enforcing Delta 8 THC laws when it's the Department of Agriculture essentially that needs, like, make a call to Nikki Fried's office and ask for stronger and more stringent enforcement. But to waste our tax dollars in a 65-day limited session where there are so many other bills, laws, the budget that needs to happen in Florida. It's similar to when I see politicians passing bans on certain dog breeds. It's how I feel about them trying to regulate Delta 8 THC. It is a legal product. If you don't want minors to get a hold of it, then send the Department of Agriculture into any gas stations that are selling it to minors. But don't sit up there and waste my tax dollars to write a bill, have staff review a bill, upload it on the website that my taxes pay for, and then you're sitting there and telling me you're trying to do some type of public good, because you're not. What you're doing is exercises in futility, wasting money. And so as a politician, you can say, oh, look, I did something. I was protecting the kids. No, you're not. You're wasting our dollars. If you really wanted to protect the kids, take the money that you just wasted to write that bill and put it in the school's budget,
I know, man. I don't know. It's just it's crazy. You know,
And to be clear, it's not a ban on Delta 8. It's a restriction that you can only sell Delta 8 to people 21 and up. And there's going to be, but anytime you start to see these bills trying to encroach on any freedoms that we've already won, they're trying to turn the clock back. I mean, it is about a power grab for our rights and our freedom in the grand scheme of things. And that's not right.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Grady Judd doing that report. And I don't know. A lot of people don't like Delta 8 apparently. Yeah, dude. I had this like I do have to be careful in this store selling Delta 8. And I'll tell you why. And actually the news that did the report on Chillum selling Delta 8 did a good job of showing this. But there was a lady that came in and she went to do a dab, and we serve Delta 8 dabs here. We'll give people a dab of Delta 8 THC. And I was definitely telling her, hey, like, this gets you high, this, but I don't think she was paying attention to me, and she was trying to show off for her friends. And then all of a sudden, this woman that's never felt what marijuana is like just did a dab.
Sorry for laughing, but the picture of what you just said in my head sounds
So the picture like this, like, dude, like an old church lady, right, doing her first dab of Delta 8 THC in the middle of Ybor City, right? She's sitting down in the corner and she's like, oh my God, like, she's like got her mask on and she's like like scared for her life, dude. So like people just have to be people just have to be aware that it gets them stoned, and people can make their own decisions. And like, it's not, it's it's just like Delta 9. I don't know. It's weird. I guess I have to preach to the choir on this podcast because I mean, what else can you say? Like, I mean, weed has never hurt anybody. Like, it should be sold like this, just out in the public, just for anybody who wants it.
Well, I think that the prohibition on cannabis is a big issue because it does create safety issues for people. If politicians wanted to make cannabis safer, if you want to put restrictions on things, then you have to open up a legal market because you have to take it out of the hands of an illicit market, out of the hands of drug dealers, right? Because I shouldn't have to go get my cannabis from some guy who's also moving heavy weight, who might have connections with some real criminal enterprises, right? And so that's the part of it that creates an issue. You want safe, tested, product that people know what they're putting in their bodies. And that's the beautiful part I love about what you use at your store and what you're selling, in that you have laboratory test on it. It has ratios and it has labeling on it. But you can walk into some of these other head shops, and you can walk into some of these other smoke shops anywhere in the U.S. and you're like, it just says CBD on the label, or it just says hemp oil on the label. It has zero testing and such.
Can you imagine having to go to a drug dealer to buy Delta 8 THC?
That is ludicrous.
That would be weird.
Hey, do you have Delta 8? It's so much more mellow,
Yo, bro, I sprayed this hemp flower that I got with Delta 8 THC. I'll sell you a nickel bag. Puppy. Oh, I want a dog so bad.
Well, this one is an American Bulldog. She's going to be 2 years old in April. And they're a handful if you have bullies as puppies, but they're great dogs. They're loyal. So, and they scare people, even though they're not really that scary. So a good protection dog.
Yeah, it looks like a sweet puppy. She just wants love. Okay, so all right. So I spent this whole 17 minutes just like bad mouthing all the progress that's ever happened with marijuana legalization. Let's talk about what progress is going to be made in the Florida legislature. There's a couple of bills, and we keep talking about them every week. And Gary's normally the guy to talk about them, but you kind of got to step in now, Keno, and let us know what's happening.
Well, look, there's some recent bills filed that essentially are omnibus glitch bills, is a nice way to put it, where they're working on removing cannabis off of the schedule here in Florida. Also being able to look at some of these bills and tack amendments on there. There were several bills that Gary, myself, were pushing here in Florida, looking for sponsors, and we ended up, the deadline for bill sponsorship was Friday, and some of these bills didn't get sponsors. One, Gary's home grow alternative bill that he wrote that has to do with, being able to create co-ops for home grows. That are essentially don't grow at your home, but grow at a third-party site. It's a step in the right direction. He drafted something he thought a Republican legislature might be able to tolerate. And that really is what it goes down to, is for as much as I hate that politics affects this plant, there is a big partisan divide on this plant in many cases. At the federal level, it's a little bit different because you see Republican legislators coming from states like Colorado, California, and other states where it's working, and they realize, okay, yeah, this works. Let's get behind this. Even in Florida, where you have folks like Matt Gaetz, who was the sponsor of the 2014 Compassionate Care Act, which allowed for low THC cannabis for medical use in Florida. So you have some politicians that understand that legalization needs to happen, that's the way forward. And yet you constantly see other ones that they know the train has left the station. They're doing everything they can to divert the tracks, to throw a baby on the train tracks, everything to stop this train that's moving full speed. And that is what you see in these bills with the THC caps. These bills that are going to essentially tax the plant and tax the patients. They want to limit concentrates to 60%. In the bill, they want to limit flour to 10%. And for me, that is ethically wrong, because it is up to the patient and the doctor as to what percentages, what type of medicine they need to use. If you're a cancer patient, the state should have no right to limit your ability to get healthy and regulate this plant to a point to where it's going to hinder your recovery, it's going to hinder your treatment, hinder your progress. If a cancer patient needs a 98% THC concentrate, then by all means the state should not be standing in the way of that. If someone who has Crohn's disease needs to smoke a flower that's 15% THC, then why is the state standing in the way of that? And that is where we're at with these bills. I mean, over 2,000 people have signed the petition that Florida for Cares put out to stop the THC caps. I know I put out that same petition in our most recent email blast to our members and to our followers. But that is where we're at right now, is that this battle in the Florida legislature is heating up between moving forward and progressing with legalization and everything they're doing to try and stop it, from, these Delta 8 regulation bills to the THC caps. And it's not right, because, I mean, they're sitting there wanting to make the state of Florida virtually almost open carry, where you can have a gun anywhere, but for some reason I can't have a joint anywhere. And that just boggles my mind. How can you be for freedom and yet you want to restrict freedoms in other places?
And that's another thing too. It's like, with the 10% cap, I think our listeners are getting it from both sides here, because we got Gary saying that it's not going to go through, and I was really, I really was in the past episode digging into to see what he would say, but I'm worried that a 10% cap is going to go through, that they're going to sneak it in and finally get it in there. They definitely want to. They've been trying to for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. But Gary swears that it's not going to go through, that we need to focus on other things. We got to focus on moving forward instead of stopping from moving back. And then we had Eric Stevens on the show, which is like, 100% like, let's get a no 10% THC cap from Florida. And he's like, there's no way we're moving forward. We got to stop these guys from moving backwards. We're not going to legalize. No, we don't have to worry about Brandis and Carlos's bill, because that's just, that's just, not going to go, that much forward. Like, there's no way in this legislator is going to push something like that through.
It's true. I mean, looking at the best way I can compare it. When I was doing my research for my master's degree on cannabis prohibition, I remember seeing in 2011 that you had Bernie Sanders and you had Barney Frank. No, it was Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul were sponsoring a bill together to essentially legalize cannabis federally. And those are, Ron Paul and Bernie Sanders are so far apart on the political spectrum, and that's similar to Carlos and Brandis. That they're far apart on the spectrum, which means that you're going to have politicians in both of their parties that are not going to get behind it. And that's the problem, is that the establishment politicians in Florida are still very beholden to the existing forms of money that get them reelected. The prison industrial complex, the inflated law enforcement budgets, all benefit the existing status quo. And when you start to affect the status quo, that means you're affecting their campaign donors. And then that's when, you see the progress get killed in its infancy. If you really, if they really want to stop these legalization bills, all they got to do is assign them to 4 and 5 committees. And they'll never see the light of day for a floor vote. And that's typically what we see. Or even then, it's up to committee chairmen to even schedule a bill. It could have one committee stop, essentially, and the chairman just never schedule it for a hearing. And so that's typically what has happened to legalization bills for the last 10 years. I remember when the mayor of St. Pete, Rick Kreisman, was the only state representative in the Florida legislature willing to go out on a limb and sponsor a legalization bill way back, 2010. So this is not new. I mean, I've seen great state reps and state senators come and go. Dwight Bullard was another one when he was in the state senate who sponsored the legalization bill. And here we are today. You got Jeff Brandis. That's progress in that you actually have a member of the Republican Party for once sponsoring the legalization bill in Florida. But the fact is that it can't just be politicians either in one party or the other. It really is. Brandis and Carlos are showing us a way forward, and that's going to take bipartisan support. The problem is that even if you got even if you got it to a floor vote and got all the Democrats to vote for it, there still aren't enough Republicans in the Florida legislature that are willing to vote for it. And so that's why elections matter. And that's why, for all of our listeners out there who are Republicans, you probably have the biggest impact on Florida politics more than anybody. If you're a Republican pothead, if you're a Republican cannabis user, you paying attention to your own party's politics and voting prohibitionists out of your own party are the biggest impact you can have right now in the state of Florida. To all my Polk County potheads, please get your butts out there to the polls and vote some of these prohibitionists out of office. If you're a pothead down in Naples and in Fort Myers, you got a bigger impact than anybody, especially if you're a Republican, to being able to vote these prohibitionists out of office. If you're up in North Florida, you have an impact. So North Florida, Polk County, Naples, vote them out of office.
All of Florida, man. There's Cuban Republicans down in Miami still voting for oppressive ass politicians. And it's like, what even is a Republican anymore? You got like Republican shamans raiding the Capitol.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't understand. I don't understand what it is. It's so many of them honestly disagree with the people that they vote for.
Mm-hmm.
And they still just, I don't know. The Republican Party, I guess we're getting too macro into this, but the Republican Party is very much into the rhetoric and the brainwashing,
And let's stay fair and balanced, right? I'm a member of the Democratic Party, and people always say, "Oh, you never criticize." I'm fully willing to criticize the existing establishment. The one thing the Democratic Party cannot do is think they can weaponize cannabis as a political tool, because the vast majority of people will not fall for that. You can't sit up there and be Johnny come latelys. And that's why for the past decade, I've been advocating within my own party to say, look, you all need to get on this. This is it's something that has to do with freedom. It has to do with civil rights. It has to do with, people's health. I mean, it is a winning issue. Cannabis is not a wedge issue. It's not an issue like abortion that divides people. It's not an issue like religion in schools that divides people. Cannabis is something that unites people. It is the one public policy where you can get, we've seen it, Jews, Catholics, atheists together. You can get Republicans, Democrats together. You can get libertarians and progressives together. This is something that unites people. Bob Marley said it best. It's the healing of a nation. And so if this is a public policy that as a nation we can finally get behind, politicians need to have the fortitude and the political will to make that happen. And that is what we're just not seeing. We're electing too many weak people to office. And by weak, I mean unwilling to take a stance and do the right thing when it's hard.
I should just run for office, man.
Bro, I'd support you all day, hands down.
I should become mayor of Tampa.
Well, if you want to run for mayor, man, hey, I would love to run you up against Jane Castor all day.
She's so bad.
Oh, man. And that's the thing, too, is that, politicians in this world tend to fail upwards. You see politicians at the local level that everybody's like, oh, I can't stand this person. And the next day you look, they're your state representative. And then the next thing you look, they're in Congress. And then the next thing you look, they might be your president of the United States one day. Case in point, Governor Rick Scott of Florida. Why he is our U.S. Senator is just still mind-boggling. But the fact that he is a prohibitionist, that he has defrauded the government from Medicare dollars, and he still manages to fail upwards. And it just drives me nuts. Another one, Marco Rubio was a darling. We thought he would be the first Cuban-American president. And then he comes out and it's like, dude, you're a sellout, hands down. Because I'm sorry, but there is no way, shape, or form that I could make peace with a guy who was running for president against me that called me out for having a small penis. Okay? You know, or can I say little dick? Are we allowed to say little dick? Is
You
that
can
in our,
you can say whatever the fuck you want.
yeah, I mean, I just wanted to be clear about this. I mean, he running for office. Trump said he had a little dick, and then now you're sitting there worshiping the guy. Ted Cruz, Trump called his wife ugly, and then he gets behind him. Point being is whether you're a Trump supporter or not, let's just take that in context of third party. A dude talks shit about your manhood, a dude talks shit about your wife, and then you get behind that dude and prop him up like he's the best thing running.
I
So
didn't know he said that Marco Rubio has a little dick.
he called him Little Marco with tiny hands. You don't remember that speech?
What the fuck, man? That's like an insult to Cubans everywhere.
Yeah. If you never heard about the Superman of Havana, which I love watching Joey Diaz podcast and hearing his stories, but there are some Cubans out there that are packing 12-inch hogs. Okay, it is what it is. We're a thick group of people. Girth is in our nature. Okay, so
let's not turn this show into talking about how big our dicks are.
No, let's not. But let's also establish that we shouldn't worship politicians that are willing to go out there and say those type of things and cast them on other folks. If you're a politician yourself, and members of the public love it. I mean, was always part of Trump's main appeal, is that he understood pop culture in a way that previous politicos and businessmen didn't. And he leveraged his pop culture status in order to advance himself and advance his own agenda. And a lot of these politicians, they don't have that knack. There are some young ones coming up, like AOC. She gets it. She's a millennial. She's always on Instagram. She's on Twitch gaming. She's out there on Facebook and social media making it happen. So I would say that some people may get mad at those comparisons of Trump to AOC, but it's about being able to utilize pop culture. Another one, case in point, Jimmy Carter. For a lot of 80s babies, you don't really know Jimmy Carter. He was president back in the 70s, but he was the first guy to run a campaign, and he had concerts with the Allman Brothers, Jimmy Buffett, Willie Nelson. He got all the potheads together, the pothead musicians, and he had them do benefit concerts for him in order to raise money against the Democratic establishment that didn't want some, Southern backwoods guy from Georgia running against their pride and joy of Jerry Brown from California, And I think that was something that was unique in his
cool story.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, watch the documentary Rock and Roll President on HBO, and you'll see like, wow, that's the way to do it in the modern era. You got to be able to leverage pop culture as part of your political platform. And I think that a lot of politicians are missing out in understanding that cannabis is no longer counterculture. It is pop culture. Snoop Dogg is way more, popular than guys like back in the day, like Ginsburg or Dennis or Leary, the old potheads from the 60s and 70s and such,
Man, that's kind of funny, dude, because I was actually thinking about this the other day. Like, I used to think I was cool just because I knew what terpenes were, but like now random dudes walking down the street just have shirts that say terpenes on it, and like they're carrying Cookies brand clothing and, like designer outlets and shit. And yeah, dude, like it's definitely it's here. It's part of our culture. People and that Cookies brand is amazing to me, because it's like there's people out there that don't smoke weed, right? Never would go to a cannabis dispensary. They just don't want to do it, and they're just like, oh, I gotta get my Cookies backpack, bro. Like
like Cookies is supreme, right? Those are like the pop culture brands people are rocking now.
Yeah, and that's
it's the new Nike and Reebok.
They're selling weed, yo. I used to be cool just because, like, you were there with me, bro. Like, I was teaching classes at holy shit, there is a car going by that's with a loud stereo.
You're in Ybor City. That should not be a shocker.
No, we used to teach classes on what terpenes are.
Yeah,
like that. Now everybody knows what it is. Now that's like irrelevant information. And it's definitely ingrained in our culture now, but it's still not legal.
Yep. That's the
And we
problem.
still haven't gotten very far.
That goes back to my whole point of this soapbox that I'm on, is that the disconnect between the policymakers and the people is
Uh,
a divide that is farther now more than ever. For all the progress we see people make with, even in our state, we passed an initiative, not the
uh,
politicians, because they didn't have the political will or the political courage. In South Dakota, the people passed it this past election, and you see courts trying to go back behind the people's and strike down these constitutional amendments, these different voter passed initiatives, and that's not right. I mean, you said it before. New Jersey was a several years of a battle to get it to the table. And so, yeah, you can have 6 ounces of bud, but they won't let you grow it. And it's like, okay, you're killing me. I think Virginia is probably, when we look at the South, I think that the current bill we're seeing coming out of Virginia is probably what I'm seeing as a molding or a meshing of both systems, the vertically integrated system and in an open system meshed together. Similar to what we're seeing in Illinois right now. And I think the biggest losers out of all that are always going to be the consumer, because when you have less people in the market, you have less options. Yet you get forced to have to buy products that sometimes are subpar because there aren't any other offerings.
mm.
So, Carlos, someone said you sound like Dana Carvey on Wayne's World. So, I guess that makes me Wayne. That makes you Garth.
Party time.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
So sounds like David Carvey on Wayne's World.
One of the questions asked is, where's John Morgan in all this? Look, I think John Morgan is one of those, politicians that, and I say politician in that he's a politico. He's not an elected official. He's a kingmaker. John Morgan has so many resources. If he really wanted to get behind a certain candidate, he could dump a boatload of money behind that candidate and get whatever outcome that he wanted in an election. And I think we kind of saw that with how he backed Charlie Crist for governor against Rick Scott back in 2014. That Morgan, if he wants a politician in there, he'll get him in there. He'll make it happen. And where's John in this fight? I mean, the Florida legislature, that's a lot. That's 120 people in the House, another 40 in the Senate. That's a lot of money to influx into a lot of races and maybe not have the clout necessary. I mean, it would take someone who's a multi-billionaire essentially to come into Florida. And even then, what we're talking about with political agenda and campaign donors, you're still going to be beholden to campaign donors, even if they want a positive public policy like cannabis. There are going to be other things that the campaign donors are going to want. When people donate to a campaign, they expect a return on their investment. For people who have supported campaign, I've run a couple of times. I've always taken nothing but small donations from regular citizens, because those were the people I wanted to be beholden to. I didn't want to be beholden to the businesses that dump money into my campaign. I didn't want to be beholden to super PACs dumping money into my campaign. And I think that what is where we're at right now, is that in order to win just something small like a state house race, which is a job that pays $30K a year, and that you only work for a few months out the year, if you will, really, with committees and session and everything. I mean, those people are spending $100,000 to $250,000 on those races, and it's more about power than it is money. And so that's why you see the 70% of the people in the Florida legislature right now are millionaires. They're not regular people like you and me. They're not small business owners trying to make the hustle and make sure the rent gets paid next month. These folks are ones that go to country clubs and have their own yachts, and some of them even have their own private planes and such. And it's infuriating to see that disconnect. It's like, you can't relate to me. So you're sitting here trying to tell me, oh, well, minimum wage of $15 is too much, and having the right to legal cannabis to grow it at home and smoke it yourself, and still be able to have a job is too much. And I disagree. I disagree 100%. And that's why I said, Carlos, if you want to run for mayor, I support your platform hands down, because I know that you're in touch. You're a business owner with the people. You're the type.
How much would it cost? So, I got to be a millionaire to get in the legislature, but just,
to run for mayor? Oh man,
You know?
a city council race. I mean, depends on your district. Funny enough, Carlos, your district that you live in is actually up for election in the next in the next one. Well, wait, you live in the county because you're right across the street, right?
Yeah.
So you couldn't even run for mayor of Tampa or city of Tampa. You'd have to move across the street from your current home because your house is just on the other side of the street from the city border. So
Fucking buy a new house to get
yeah,
involved in city politics. What about county? Can county council? That's a
yeah.
thing, right?
County commission. You want to run for county commission? That's something that you could do. Those are elected every 4 years.
I don't like your tone right now. Like it's just like, yeah, you can if you want to do that. I support you.
I think that like looking at main policy points, right? Cannabis is a big policy point for you. The county commission are the ones who
Smoke weed.
are regulating dispensaries as far as like dispensary bans. I remember at the county commission a few years back, we were all fighting to stop the dispensary cap. They wanted to cap the number of dispensaries allowed in the county. So yeah, the county commission does have certain input on these cannabis businesses, but the state of Florida is consistently in where it chooses to preempt counties and cities on regulating certain things. These caps on cannabis. So even still, being a local official doesn't have as much power as those folks in the state legislature. For someone who makes $30K a year, who's already a millionaire, who's getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in campaign donations. These are the people that are the incumbents. These are the ones that are making the policy decisions. And we, the people, have to do something about it. Yes, more people have to run for office. As I said before, more people in both parties have to vote prohibitionists out of there. And you got to put people in office that are willing to be on your team, on your side when it comes to these key public policy issues. And I think that's the downside of it, because cannabis for a lot of voters is not their only issue. For some, it is a make or break issue. For me, it is definitely a make or break issue. If you're a prohibitionist politician, you could agree with me on 99% of my other policy platforms. But this one right here, okay.
Okay, check this out, right? So so two things before I ask my question, right? The first time that there was any type of legalization out there in the U.S. anywhere, it wasn't on a state level, it was on a city level. It was the city of San Francisco, and they basically put out like a memo or something like that saying like, we're just not going to arrest you if you're using it for medical use, right? That's pretty much all they did, right? Like that was like, I think in 1992. Right. And I mentioned earlier in this show that I used to live in the city of Oakland. Right. When I was living there, medical marijuana was legal. I had visited California with my family, and we were in San Francisco right before they passed adult use. And like it was one of those things where like the law was already passed. Right. They just hadn't enacted it yet. Right. So I wanted to buy some weed. So I hop on the BART train and I head over to Oakland. Right. I stop into Amsterdam and I'm like, yo, what's up, everybody? I'm back. What's good? What's going on? Where can I buy some weed, guys? And, they informed me that the city of Oakland had actually legalized marijuana, the actual city. And they sent me to this place where it was like a club, it was like a collective. And in order to become a member of this collective, I had to take a test saying that I never snitched on. Like the guy gave me the test. He was like, "Be careful if you mess up one question, right? You're not going to be able to get in there, right?" So you look at the test, and it's all like, "Have you ever snitched on anybody for selling marijuana? Do you believe marijuana should be legalized?" Right. It was like all these like crazy questions, like trying to make sure that I'm not a snitch, basically. Right. So the point of all this is the city of Oakland passed a law legalizing marijuana. If Jane Castor wanted to, you feel me? If Jane Castor wanted to, would she be able to legalize marijuana within the city limits of Tampa? And if so, that would suck because my house is right across the street.
I would say this much: she could make enforcement the lowest priority possible. I mean, essentially, with the city ordinance that was passed, police currently have the option to choose not to arrest you. And I think that's probably the best that we could get is a change in enforcement priorities because the state of Florida law preempts any local laws, and local governments can't essentially adopt a more liberal policy than the state government. Like the state government sets the bar, and currently cannabis still remains illegal and is still a misdemeanor for 20 grams or less in Florida.
Okay, but there's certain police officers that work for the state, certain police officers that work for the city. If that police officer worked for the city of Oakland, for example, in that time frame that I was talking to you about,
Yeah.
right? They kind of would have the choice. Like they wouldn't get fired if like their boss found out.
No.
Right.
No, yeah.
So like, I mean, I don't know. The point I'm trying to get at is we need to make me mayor of Tampa so I can legalize marijuana in the city limits of Tampa.
You could direct TPD to not enforce marijuana policy. Also, your state attorney matters. Andrew Warren is our state attorney. I know we worked to help him get rid of Mark Ober, which was the third worst prohibitionist in the country. So I'm glad that we got rid of that prohibitionist and got Andrew Warren in there. Having a state attorney that also does not want to waste our tax dollars prosecuting cannabis crimes is another valuable office that matters. And then also having judges that aren't going to throw the book at people. So there are so many offices in this country beyond just the state legislature that affect criminal justice policy when it comes to cannabis that we need to be paying attention to. And yes, a strong mayor system of government like Tampa, where the mayor essentially is the one running the police department, it says a lot. And there's a lot that can be done if we had a mayor with the fortitude to do that. And if that person is Carlos Jose Angel Hermida, I am all in.
I hear what you're telling me, Keno. I'm setting my sights too low. I got to become governor.
There you go.
Could just be like, yo, this is stupid. I don't know why he sounds like that in my head, but he's like, yo, this is stupid. Fucking legalize marijuana. It's my DeSantis depression.
So somehow this Harvard graduate naval officer sounds like a soprano. I got you.
Like, my name's DeSantis.
They call me Ronnie,
They call me Ronnie DeSantis.
Too much. They call me Ronnie on the mean streets of Naples.
And on that note, I think
I do see some key things in all this, right? Like we're arguing over legalization and how fast the progress is happening, but there are key groups that I do not want to see left behind when it comes to legalization. Veterans, number one. For me, working with the Weed for Warriors Project, and having the opportunity to see and meet and talk with veterans and understand that cannabis is a medicine and a treatment that helps their daily struggles to heal the scars that they have that are both visible and invisible, the ones that they received on the battlefield and they've received in coming back home and adjusting to life here. They, by all means, should have unbridled access to this plant. Veterans should have the right to grow at home. Veterans should not have to pay these ridiculous taxes and fees in the cannabis system for all that they've sacrificed for us and for this country. The other group of people that I don't want to see left behind is those groups that have been over-policed and targeted and oppressed by cannabis laws, namely the urban core and the neighborhoods and communities that are African American and Latino that see disproportionate arrest rates and conviction rates when it comes to cannabis. And some of these states have tried to do their best, and I say try because I haven't seen the state really pull it off to success yet in creating social equity programs and licensing. In Florida, they attempted to do that. They're like, oh, well, we'll give one of these vertically integrated licenses to a black farmer. And here we are in 2021, and it still hasn't happened. And so,
there's black farmers in Florida too. There's got to be.
Come on. I mean, it's just sad that this is what we see. So, again, understanding that the war on drugs, the cannabis prohibition has caused damage to various communities, and there are various groups of people that are hurt more than others, and the recognizing that and trying to do something about that is what we need to do as well, as we push along, these legalization laws. So, all in all, what can we do? We can be informed voters. For us, just casting our ballots in the ballot box is not enough. You got to get engaged in the legislative process, which is why we're happy to guide, and break it down for the common man of all this crazy political jargon that you see, of all these crazy bills going on. There's so much legislation moving. We're actually revamping our website to create a legislative tracker so you can follow along where these bills are going. So look for that coming out next week. And folks, I'm doing it. I'm editing the website.
Cool. I think it's awesome. That's cool.
So, there is some comments about House Bill 1445 that I found interesting. That House bill in itself has some limits on edibles, and it no longer allows minors to have access to medical marijuana. Essentially, minors right now need 2 physician recommendations. To me, this is near and dear because, look, if a child has brain cancer and that child needs high THC to kill a brain tumor, then why is the state legislature trying to get in between that doctor and that patient and that child being healthy? To say that, minors can only have low THC cannabis, well, that in itself is ludicrous. All treatment options need to be available. If your kid is sick, the last thing you want is the state trying to tell you that, your kid did have this treatment option. You just needed 2 doctor certifications. But now we're going to take that away. And we're going to limit the potency of edibles. And that's what House Bill 1445 does, in addition to preventing certifying physicians. So essentially, if you see medical marijuana patients, you can't be a part of the medical marijuana industry. And it also limits advertising for medical marijuana treatment centers. There's this paternalistic approach in the Florida legislature, like, oh my God, we're going to have a rampant epidemic of teenage potheads all over the state if we don't, overregulate this system. And that is not true. It's not right. And it's just a flat out bad public policy. But it's like when you say you're doing it for the kids, you kind of get a free pass in politics. And that's just not right.
Kids. That's been an excuse for a long time, man. The parental advisory.
Like, what about the children?
What about the children? They're going to listen to Pop That Pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Your teenage kid is actually listening to WAP right now, smoking a Juul. Okay, yeah. Cannabis is the least of your concerns when it comes to your child.
I hate those nicotine vapes.
Oh man, I got a junk mail the other day, and it was like, "Do you want to stop smoking?" And I opened it, and it's Juul. It's a Juul advertisement. Made it seem like it was a "Let's Stop Smoking" advertisement, but no, it's like switch from cigarettes to nicotine vapes.
I think we should just set like a live camera on your dog and just put that up on our Facebook feed.
So she wants me to go outside with her is what it is. She's like, Daddy, why are you sitting here talking to Carlos on the computer? You should be outside frolicking with me.
Well, she's gonna get her chance because we've run we've come to that time.
It's about that time to wrap it up.
So what else can you do to help improve the cannabis movement? Well, you can join Suncoast Normal. Right, you can do that on our website, suncoastnormal.org. You can see that link down there at the bottom there, over there. Right. And what else should we do? What else should we talk about here?
If you're already a member, you can come down to Chillum and pick up your membership package, right?
Yeah. All our employees know about our membership packages now. So, like, if there's any issues, you're not going to get any. You're getting a thumbs up.
Get a cool pen, get your membership cards.
This cool mask that I didn't have on at the beginning of the
get broadcast. Your member mask. Indeed.
All right. And if you liked watching the rotation, you want to check out some other shows, you can download the rotation on SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iTunes. You could also watch us live on all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And where's this social media? There we go. We're at Suncoast Normal on all of our social media platforms. What else should we talk about? Oh, if you want the mask, you can just get it on the website.
Indeed, indeed. And if you're concerned about whether or not the legislature is going to pass the THC cap, you can do your due diligence, call your state representative, call your state senator, ask them to vote no on it when it comes to the floor. And again, to my friends and fellow potheads who are Republicans, you have probably the biggest impact in all this by telling your elected officials you're their constituent and you will vote their ass out of office in the next primary if they're not willing to support legalization and stop these caps.
Yeah, be proactive, guys. Do something. Do something. Get out there, vote. Become politically active. Go to a city council meeting and vote for Carlos Ramita for city council in Tampa. Bye.